Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. Let's talk boxing. Teofimo Lopez was just gifted a decision against Jermaine Ortiz, in my opinion. I'm not going to call it a robbery. I had it 7-5 to Ortiz. Wouldn't be against 8-4 to Ortiz. The reason I'm not going to call it a robbery is because there were a couple of swing rounds in there. If you want to go for a draw for Teofimo, or even edge it to Teofimo, I'm going to think you are really trying to score it to Teofimo. You must like him. You must be a fan of his. But it's within the realm of acceptability. The problem that I have is that whenever there's a fight of this type of style, this sort of vibe, a low volume type of fight where one guy's moving and creating spacing and stuff like that, why is it always the A side that gets the decision? In some ways, there are a lot of similarities between this and the Sandor Martin fight for Teofimo Lopez. The Prograis versus Zorrilla fight was somewhat similar. Shakur Stevenson against Edwin De Los Santos. Now, I actually felt that Shakur Stevenson just about edged it against De Los Santos, and I thought that Teofimo Lopez edged it against Sandor Martin. Now, in those two fights, De Los Santos was the one that was being more the aggressor, and Teofimo was being more of the aggressor against Sandor Martin. So I had the guy on the back foot winning in one fight and the aggressor in the other fight. So it's not like I'm sitting there and I'm saying, okay, I'm going with one particular style. It's always the aggressor. It's always the back foot guy. I'm actually trying to analyze each individual fight on its own merit. I thought Zorrilla definitely beat Regis Prograis though. And tonight, I felt that Teofimo didn't get the rub of the green. Now, if you're talking about 50-50 fight and you're doing a coin toss, then surely if I'm going to toss a coin 8 times, it's not going to land on heads every single time in a row. The chances of that are unlikely. So when it's always the A side getting a decision, you have to wonder why. There was ages in the space between the cards being read out and the fight finishing. One of the judges had 117-111 to Teofimo Lopez. Absolutely ludicrous. The other two had it 115-113. Now that means it was 7-5. Within that realm of acceptability, but like I said, you must have been trying to score it, in my opinion, to Teofimo Lopez. He's got some major technical issues with his feet. And something that I've said in the past, I said it after the Sandor Martin fight, if he wants to be able to go to that next level, he must contact Eddie Reynoso. Stop trying to train with your old man. Post-fight, he turns to his dad and he says, "We're going to work, coach. What are you going to work on? You didn't learn from the Sandor Martin fight. You obviously don't know what to work on." Whereas with Canelo Alvarez, he's got certain attributes that Teofimo Lopez has as well. They're both big individual counterpunchers and they set it up well. They both have fantastic upper body movement and agility. Neither one of them have the fastest feet in the world. Yet Canelo Alvarez understands how to use misdirection. He understands how to set up punches. And there's one key thing that he has in his knowledge base that Teofimo seems to lack. Many people think that distance is about how close your hands are to the opponent or your upper body. It's not. It's how close your feet are. That's what determines distance. If my front foot is close to you, for instance, and I'm leaning all the way on my back foot, I can still reach you. If I shift my weight onto that front foot, because I'm leaning over that front foot and my weight distribution is just on top of that front foot, because it's near you, my upper body goes near you, which means obviously I've got the extension of the arms. Whereas imagine my feet are just out of range. So if I'm standing straight on my feet, I cannot possibly reach you. Even if I'm leaning forward, the problem with that is that if you then take half a step back, how do I readjust my feet to come close to you? I can't. I've put all my weight on my lead foot, which is what Teofimo likes to do. He likes to have quite a narrow stance, brings his feet a little bit too close together when he's walking after you, doesn't cut off the ring effectively in that way. But then when he's about to plant his feet and launch an attack, his stance widens, he puts that weight on that front foot, an opponent will take a step backwards, move laterally, he has to throw one individual punch and then reset. If it's a backhand, he's going to square up, or if he's going to lead with a lead hand, he's sometimes jumping off the floor, literally launching off the floor. And when you're off the floor, you're what? You're in space, you're in the ether. It's not like you're going to adjust. Your feet are off the floor. So you've committed to the shot. If you're going to land, you've landed one individual shot, then you need to plant your feet, reset and turn with him so you can get caught straight after you've thrown that shot. If you miss the shot, you're going to look like an idiot. At best case scenario, worst case scenario, you're going to walk onto a counter, which was happening consistently. We saw him get dropped with a nice little check counter by Sandor Martin as well, because he's too aggressive with that entry point and he jumps in. He doesn't have his feet beneath him. He doesn't jab enough, trying to close the range with double jabbing. He doesn't feint enough. He literally is looking to show you upper body movement to make himself an unstable target, thinking that he can counter punch his entry. That's his point. He's so focused on counter punching, even on his entry, he's thinking, how can I counter punch to enter without actually setting it up? He doesn't work it properly. He makes errors with his feet. And Jermaine Ortiz, even if he's not landing consistently, this idea of he's running, he's like an Olympic track star. If he's landing more than Teofimo Lopez, that's all that matters. The ring is the size it is because you're allowed to use it all. People will say, oh, it's aggression. No, it's not aggression that counts. It's effective aggression. For aggression to be effective, you need to be landing punches. It reminds me of football. In football matches, you've got a smaller side, say, that's very well organised defensively, not an easy skill to master. They'll go to a big team and they'll be defensive. This is soccer, right, for our American friends. They'll keep the game 0-0 for ages and it's a boring game. Then they score a goal from a corner, they win 1-0. The manager of the big superstar team in the press conference afterwards will turn around and say, well, they had no interest in trying to play a game. They wanted to come and park the bus in front of the goal. What are you chatting about? What kind of excuse is that? You've got all of the possession. Do you know how to carve open a team or not? Do you have that creativity or not? Well, by the same token, do you know, Teofimo Lopez, how to cut the ring off or not? Do you know how to punish him for his style or not? In the 7th round, I think it was, there was a clash of heads. And what happened was, it seemed to discombobulate Jermaine Ortiz a little bit. And at that point, he widened his stance a little bit and sort of crouched slightly and held his feet a little bit more. And you saw that Teofimo was able to then plant his feet, show a lot of upper body movement, roll with shots, land some nice counter punches, some really nice work. Once he was able to regain his composure, Jermaine Ortiz, he got back onto moving again. And in the very next round, he would square up with Teofimo, but just out of range. Okay, so he's squaring. That way he can move laterally. And he would only blade up when he was ready to either lead of his own accord, or if he was ready to throw a check hook and pivot out and move out because Teofimo has committed. When he's in that zone where he's facing Teofimo Lopez and he's facing him square on and he's moving laterally, Teofimo doesn't know how to cut off the ring. He just doesn't know how to do it. And at points he's trash talking and then he's moving backwards and trying to lure him in. He's not going to fight your fight. You have to know how to do what I've just told you need to do with your feet. And Canelo Alvarez is a master of that. He'll use misdirection. He'll get his feet into the zone. He'll offer you a mirage of a target. He'll give that high guard and lean forward. And because his weight's on his front foot, but his front foot's right next to you, or sometimes it won't actually be on his front foot. He'll have it at mid-range, but his front foot's close to you. And as he's at mid-range and you commit thinking, right, I'm going to punch him on his entry, he then leans back, you fall short. And because his foot's still close to you, because you've had to close the range further to come in, he then comes back with a counter. And he was doing this all the time, for instance, against Billy Joe Saunders. You implement that into your game, you're going to go to a new level. If you don't, and you carry on along this path, you're going to continue to have problems against movers that can lure you onto shots, that take the pocket away from you and force you to leap into shots. All these people, all this time that were telling me, Kambosos has no chance against Teofimo, and I was telling you, he's a threat to him pre-fight. He could potentially beat him. When he beat him, there are a few people that are going, well done, Chris, well done. Since then, because Kambosos has lost twice to Devin Haney, he should have lost to Maxie Hughes. People have been saying, Kambosos overrated. They believe the story that Teofimo Lopez had an off night, that he was half dead coming into the ring. Rubbish. It's a stylistic issue. It would be a tough fight as long as Kambosos on form whenever they fought, because he was able to take that pocket away, get on the back foot and say to him, come on in, you close the range whilst I lead with power shots. Something that Sandor Martin did. He wasn't throwing flurries of power shots like Kambosos was, but he fought more like Ortiz tonight. But the focus of taking the pocket away on the back foot and making Teofimo commit was what caused success. He's predominantly a counter puncher. And so he needs to alter that and work on aspects of his game that enable him to be more varied. While he's elite at certain things, there are other areas where he's deficient. And against other fighters who are elite in the areas that can be exposing your deficiencies, like Devin Haney, who will pop you from range and move and say, go on then, chase me. Your only hope is going to be to try and time him with an individual power shot. And because he's the sort of guy that will pop you from range and then pull back quickly, and if you do get close, he will then smother you, which will reset you and put you out at range. He's going to give you a torrid time. You're talking about Bud Crawford. Let me tell you something. With Bud's back foot game, if you want to fight Bud Crawford, don't come down to the ring with the circus theme like you did today. Come down to the ring with a basketball theme and put a basket at the top of row Z in the arena, because he's going to try and put your head through that basket. That'll be a nice trick shot. If you try to walk down and leap into shots like that against Bud Crawford, he's going to take your head off. You're a superb talent, but you don't know how to use your attributes. And when you're sitting and you're going, less work, coach, quite frankly, it doesn't look like you know what you're working on, because you can't keep repeating mistakes if you think you know them. And when you're getting that corner advice from your dad, he's not telling you the things that you need to address. To me, that suggests neither of you know what is going wrong here. Contact Eddie Reynoso. That's all I can say. Now, in the last round, he did start to alter things a little bit. He would start to lead with this wide left hook, so that when Ortiz is trying to exit, to pivot out that right-hand side, he's cutting off the trajectory of it. But as he's throwing the left hook, he's then throwing the right hand down the pipe. So what then happens is Ortiz knows I can't escape to that side. He's catching me with a hook, then he's catching me down the center. Now I'm being in a position where I'm forced to trade. And when he has to trade, well, that's where you know that Teofimo's great, because he's going to sit there and he's going to roll and come up with counters and uppercuts to the body and these short hooks. And he looks great. There are certain things he's superb at. He's got the upper body movement, the agility, the counter punching, but you need to address your weaknesses. You're only as good as your weakest link, really. And that's what he needs to learn to address. And like I said, I was telling Wright and Yogi pre-fight, because somebody, Reese W and a few other people had told me that they were worried that he's the sort of guy that doesn't sort of lift himself for the event. You know, he's inconsistent. I don't actually think he's inconsistent. I think that's overstated. I just think that he has certain technical limitations, and when he gets in the ring with guys that know how to exploit that, he has trouble, and he would continue to have trouble against these guys until he's able to address it. Even the top level guys he's beaten, like Lomachenko, because Loma's so small, and by the way, Loma hasn't fought anyone, right? He beat Jermaine Ortiz. Tough fight, but he beat him. Loma, who's small and has to fight like a pressure fighter against these much bigger men, he has to come to Teofimo. Teofimo has the luxury of being able to counterpunch him, and because he's a bigger man with a lot of punching power, he's going to give Lomachenko something to think about in that moment. When he's fighting Josh Taylor, who's a tall fighter but likes to get close, he gives up his height to Josh Taylor. He's not like these other guys who take the pocket away. He comes for war. Yeah, that's great. You're going to look sensational. But when you have to do the chasing and you look at guys like Devin Haney who are in your weight category, you're going to have a problem. You can have guys like Matthias, for instance, who everybody's scared of. Teofimo will look at that and he'll think, this guy will come to me. It's the guys that he has to go to that would be scarier for Teofimo Lopez, and it's something that needs to be addressed. And also, I did a little interview with Base the Kid, and Base was saying as well, he thought that this was a very tricky fight. It could go the other way. I actually thought Teo would actually get the job done, although I knew it was a tricky fight. I was telling Wright and Yogi pre-fight that this was a tricky fight, but I thought that he'd get it done because I figured he would have learned from the Sandor Martin fight. And so to make a fight like this, for me, he's probably preparing for a Devin Haney in future. So he wants to see the stuff that I had issues with. Have I improved on them against this guy? That way I can then be implementing them against Devin Haney. But it didn't even look like he was trying to implement certain things, which proves to me they didn't have a clue about what to expect or how to deal with this problem. And so nobody accuses me of trying to fanboy Devin Haney or hating on Teofimo or anything like that. Let me just add this. I've got a lot of respect for Teofimo Lopez. This is a guy who, unlike some of the other guys, including Devin Haney, takes certain risks that go beyond what suits him stylistically. You look at someone like Devin Haney, as brilliant of a fighter as he is, he does tend to want to use height, weight, reach as an advantage, and he fights certain fighters where he feels he's got those significant advantages. Whether you're talking about the likes of Regis Prograis, whether you're talking about the likes of Vasyl Lomachenko or George Kambosos, they don't tend to be guys that have certain attributes that could perhaps exploit areas of weakness for him. And so he wants to be against shorter, less rangy types of guys. Well, what Teofimo Lopez does, apart from fighting top-level guys, he also fights guys who are not highly rated, but are actually quality fighters. Guys like Jermaine Ortiz, guys like Sandor Martin, guys like George Kambosos, guys like Nakatani, guys like Richard Comey, and they're guys, some of them, not Comey, but some of the others who know how to use range in certain areas. And that means stylistically, there could be a problem for him. So from a matchmaking perspective, from a business perspective, what he does is not actually a good idea. Just like Kambosos. Kambosos choosing to fight Maxi Hughes, as I told you, pre-fight, was a tactical error. A moving southpaw who's going to take the pocket away from you. Because ironically, Kambosos has a similar issue to Teofimo Lopez in that regard. He's not that great at chasing a guy on the front foot who's looking to take the pocket away, right? There's certain matchmaking errors, so to speak, but I've got respect for that because they want the smoke, even though they know that smoke comes with a flame and that flame could burn them. A lot of the other top guys aren't doing that. A lot of other top guys might pick, this guy's the perfect fight to make right now. This guy stylistically suits us and stuff like that. So I'm not hating on Teofimo Lopez, but it is what it is in terms of his performance and his limitations. And the way things are, Haney will be looking at that fight and licking his chops. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Please don't forget to hit a stiff jab on the like button or right across on the subscribe button and up on the notifications button. Thanks for watching, chat to you soon. Take care. God bless.